So today we are from Group 6 are going to present about Fiqh Muqaran in Mudakat matters. Our team members are Ain, Hana, Izati, Shafika and Shamila.
Before we go further, this is a table of our contents. We will start the presentation with the introductions and then followed by the subtopics. There are 5 issues under the subtopic of Munakat matters, and then we will end the presentation with the conclusion.
Marriage is a sunnah, therefore it is normal for people to get married and build a family. However, life isn't always a bed of roses. There might be some issues that will arise in a marriage. That's why Islam has provided a complete guideline to solve these issues in a marriage. But do you know that there are different views of mazhab regarding issues in marriage? Are you guys curious? Stay tuned!
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nurhana binti Muhammad Nazim, and today I will share the view of various scholars on the issue of divorce through SMS. In Islam, married couple can get a divorce after talaq had been done by the husband. But before that, we need to know the rukun or pillars for a divorce to be valid. And they are, first, a husband which is a mukallaf, which means the husband is sane and baligh when the lafaz of talaq had been done. The second one is wife, which had been married legally by the husband. And lastly is sighah of the talaq, which is the lafaz talaq. Talaq usually is done verbally using a clear words that initiating separation, whether clearly or vaguely. The types of speech in talaq is separated by 2 types, which is one talaq syarih and the second one is talaq kinayah. Before we go deep into the issue, we need to understand the types of talaq, the lafaz first, and the first one is talaq syarih. Talaq syarih is the divorce where the lafaz clearly describe his message, which is the husband, and there are no other meanings behind the words. And the commonly used term in talaq is divorce, talaq, free, and separated. Where I can give an example, which is of talaq syarih is I divorce you Nur with talaq 1. Based on the example, we can see that words such as divorce and talaq had been used, and the husband also had mentioned to whom he directed the lafaz. The next type of talaq is talaq kinayah. Talaq kinayah is a divorce where the words used are not clear but may contain the same meaning to divorcing. That may sound vague, but at the same time, the lafaz is instating to talaq. This word can be interpreted as talaq or other than talaq. If I can give it an example, it sounds like, if you step your feet outside of this house, then you are haram for me. Based on the lafaz, the husband did not describing his lafaz clearly, whether wording divorce or talaq to his wife, but instead he stated that the wife is haram on a condition that when the wife had done them, this talaq was valid. In this issue, which is divorce through SMS, when we can see that there are no lafaz that had been done when the husband is divorcing his wife, and instead only a short message that in initiating divorce had been sent. Because of that, the view of scholars are needed to clarify this issue. The first view is the Madhab Hanafi. Based on Madhab Hanafi, there are 2 conditions that need to be fulfilled, which is, first, the words need to be clear, where there are no problem for the reader to read the content of the message, whether it is on a letter or wrote, and in this issue, which is through SMS. Next, the talaq was meant especially for the wife. In the case, if the word meant for the wife and had been stated clearly, the talaq was valid, although without niyat. This type of talaq is known as talaq syarih. And if the talaq was written with a vogue meaning, where the content of the message had mentioned the characteristic of the wife, such as to whom who wears spectacle, which referring to his wife, although with niyat, the talaq was invalid. Next, we will analyze the view of madhab Shafi'i, Maliki, and Hanbali, where the three of these madhab had the same opinion on this matter. The main factor for the talaq to be valid for these three mazhab is the niyat. The husband need to have a clear resolution on divorcing his wife and totally serious about this matter. The ruling of this issue, which is divorce through SMS, had been qiyas with divorce through writing. So there are no problem with divorcing through short message or whether social media such as direct message or WhatsApp. As what I had mentioned before, the niyat plays an important role in making sure the talaq was valid. However, in the case if the husband already typed the message on his phone but did not send the message, then the talaq is invalid although with niyat. Next, in a situation where the husband had already sent the message that announced the talaq to his wife and she already read them, although he did not have any intention to divorce his wife, the talaq was invalid. Lastly, the wife need to make a confirmation whether the one who had sent the message was her own husband, because if the message was written by other person, the lafaz is counted as void. The comparison between mazhab. First, we will analyze the summary of mazhab Hanafi. For mazhab Hanafi, the most important factor for the talaq to be valid is the type of wording and lafaz, which is clearly essential. And contrary to mazhab Hanafi, the most important factor for mazhab Shafi'i, Hanbali and Maliki was niyat, where if the husband hold intention in their message, then the talaq was valid although using talaq syarif. Lastly, to conclude this issue, I will present the view on this issue from the Mufti of Federal Territory. Divorce through SMS was considered as divorce kinayah, which is vogue, where the lafaz did not done through the usual means, which is through head-on conversation, where the wife and the husband will speak in front of their eyes and then the lafaz will be done there. And it is only valid if the husband has the intention to divorce his wife. In case the talaq include ta'liq, the ta'liq will be void if the wife did not fulfill them, and if not, where the wife fulfill the ta'liq, then the talaq will be valid. And overall, the Mufti has stated that the act of sentencing talaq through SMS is contradicted with the manner of talaq set by Shara. That is all from me. Thank you, and I will pass the presentation to my fellow teammates.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nur Izzati binti Ismail. Today I will explain the next issue, which is can a woman marry again if her husband is missing or does not know the status of his loss, whether alive or dead. Based on this issue, ulama has classified that such cases of disappearance refer as al-mafqud. In terms of language, mafqud comes from the word faqada yafqadu faqdan fiqdan, which means loss. The meaning of al-mafqud is a person who disappeared from his place of origin for a long period of the time until news broke about him, and it is also not known whether he is still alive or died. Most opinion for the duration of mafqud are from the Prophet. However, there are no opinion from ijma. Regarding this issue, the scholar agreed that there is necessary to determine the duration of mafqud. The Prophet Muhammad SAW said, for the wife of a missing person, she will be considered as his wife until a clear evidence comes to proving the otherwise. Next, we move to view of mazhab regarding this issue. For the first one is Maliki mazhab. Regarding to this issue, Maliki mazhab said a person who is missing in Islamic country can be convicted of having died upon of waiting periods 4 years. Moreover, after this period as well, his wife has to go through a period of iddah for 4 months 10 days, honor of the deeds of their husband, and then after the iddah she can marry another man. The other opinion from Imam Malik and Abu Qasim, where the view they said that his wife should wait for him at least 1 year and then undergo iddah. There is also a view in the Maliki that say the law is the same as the cases of missing person in Islamic country. Next, we move to Shafi'i mazhab. According to Qaul Jadid, the duration for the wife to wait before she marry with another man is she need to confirmation that her husband has died or he has divorced her. However, according to Qaul Qadim, the duration is 4 years with addition of iddah, which is 4 months 10 days. The strong opinion among the scholar of Al-Shafi'i, the duration must be determined by the judge of the case. Another view from Imam An-Nawawi said, if it has been proven or there is evidence regarding their death, then his estate can be divided and fara'id. Next, we move to Hanafi mazhab. According to this mazhab, a missing person is presumed dead when all the people that live in the same time of life as him are dead. However, Hanafi mazhab did not set a certain age for someone to be declared their dead. Next, another opinion from Imam Abu Hanifah. He declared dead for a missing person has reached their age 120 years old. And this opinion has supported by Al-Qadrawi. While Abu Yusuf said the age 100 years old, and there are some scholars that state age depends on the ijtihad of the judge, taking into consideration the condition of the missing person and the evidence present to him. Next, we move to Hanbali mazhab. According to Hanbali mazhab, there are 2 opinions for someone who went missing but his departure is generally considered safe. The first one is the husband and wife are considered married until there is evidence that their husband had died. And the second one, the wife has to wait their husband reach the age 90 years old, and there are other narration that state the duration is determined by ruler or mufti. Next, if a person went missing and the departure is considered dangerous, then the wife has to wait 4 years before she start the iddah for the death of her husband. To determine the general duration of mafqud, it depends on the ijtihad of the judge according to the time. Next, if a person went missing and the departure is considered dangerous, then the wife has to wait 4 years before she start the iddah. When her husband missing for a long time and that there are no longer people that are the same age with him. Next, we move to mafqud period based on Sharia law in Malaysia. Based on section 806 of the Sharia Court evidence, state that when the question is whether a person is alive or dead and it is evident that no news has been heard about it for 4 years by person who should have heard of it he is alive, the burden of proving that he is still alive switched to the person affirming it. Next, the other one is Section 531 Islamic Family Law Federal Territories state that if the husband of any woman is dead. Next, the other one is Section 531 Islamic Family Law Federal Territories state that if the husband of any woman is dead or is believed to have died or has not heard about him for a period of 4 years or more, and such circumstances as he may, for purpose of enabling her to remarry. Next, we move to comparison between mazhab. We have for scholar and period of this of al-mafqud. The first one, we have mazhab Shafi'i. Period of this of al-mafqud. Al-mafqud was over 90 years old. Also depends on the decision of the judge. The second one for mazhab Hanafi, determination based on al-mafqud peers. In this time, most died at the age 120 years old. And the last one for mazhab Maliki, al-mafqud can be considered dead when he reached age 70 to 80 years old. Next, the last one is for the conclusion. Based on these cases, al-mafqud is not considered to continue die, but it requires proof and goes through some period. The period of mafqud is determined and decided by the judge. During that period, before the death of the married is convicted and confirmed, then all the laws of hakam related to religion, especially in the chapter or inheritance, are also affected.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Syafiqah binti Surhaimi. I will continue with the issue number 3, which is, can women set a conditions of not allowing their future husbands not to practice polygamy? Before that, what is polygamy? In short, polygamy can be defined as the practice of men marrying multiple women. And in Islam, men are allowed to take as many as 4 wives at the same time. And this is based on the Quranic evidence in Surah An-Nisa verse 3. Okay, now let's start with part A first, which is the opinion and view of 4 schools of thoughts on this issue. First, Mazhab Hanafi. According to Akmaluddin Babarti, the conditions of not allowing the future husband to practice polygamy is considered fasid or invalid because it prohibits something that has been permissible in our religion. And he also added that the condition does not make the marriage invalid. And if the husband comply with the condition, then the wife is given mahar musamma. So mahar musamma is a dowry in which the nature and value are specific and agreed upon during akad nikah, as it is practiced by our society today. And if the husband failed to comply with the condition, then the wife is given mahar misil. So mahar misil is a dowry that opposite to mahar musamma. The second opinion from Mazhab Hanafi comes from Imam Sarat Shasti that stated in Al-Mabsus that these types of conditions are not necessary for men to fulfill. Okay, now moving on to Mazhab Maliki. According to Imam Malik, the conditions of not allowing their future husband not to practice polygamy is considered batil or falsehood. The marriage, on the other hand, is still lawful. He used the opinion of Sa'id ibn Musayyib, which argues that a marriage with this condition is legal and permitted. Following that, Khalil ibn Ishaq al-Jundi stated that it is makruh for a wife to impose conditions on her husband, such as prohibiting from engaged in polygamy or bringing her out of her residence or other similar situations. He also added that Imam Malik had urged the judges to ban such condition. Next, from the Mazhab Shafi'i, the opinion and view comes from the sharing opinion among Imam Nawawi, Ibn Hajar al-Haytami, Khatib al-Sharbini, and Sheikh Zakaria al-Ansari. They stated that the conditions of not allowing the future husband not to practice polygamy is considered fasid or invalid because it will change the mahar or the dowry to become fasid, not the marriage. For further argument in Fiqh al-Manhaji, which is based on the Shafi'i jurisprudence law, it stated that the conditions that conditions are incompatible with and opposite to the ruling of marriage in Islamic religion. Okay, lastly, from the Mazhab Hanbali, according to Ibn Qudama, the marriage conditions are divided into three. And one of them is the obligation of husband to fulfill the maslahah. So maslahah here refer to the wife's interest and wife needs. Hence, it's also included the condition that the husband cannot practice polygamy. And if the husband fails to meet her condition, then she has the right to demand fasaq. In brief, fasaq can be defined as a judicial revocations of a marriage contract. And this opinion is based on the sharing opinion taken from Sayyidina Umar al-Khattab, Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas, Muawiyah, Amr bin al-As, and a few other companions. Ibn Qudama also further explained that this is the companion's opinion, and he has not found any contradictions view on this subject. And he also commented about the claim that such conditions, which are referring to the conditions of not allowing the future husband to practice polygamy, is a form of prohibiting what is permissible in Islam, is incorrect, because the wife has option to demand fasaq if the husband does not meet her condition. While Imam Al-Mawardi considered the conditions of not allowing the future husband to practice polygamy is a legal condition that the husband must fulfill, and if he fails to do so, then the wife has a right to demand fasaq. Okay, next, the opinion of Ibn Taymiyyah is also similar with Imam Al-Mawardi, who considered the condition is valid and the husband must to comply with it. And the evidence that he referred to support his statement is based on the words of Sayyidina Umar al-Khattab, which says that the right of a person are the condition he has set. Above all, according to the call or opinion of Imam Ahmad Hanbal himself, which most Hanbali scholars recognize and accept, fulfilling the conditions of not allowing the future husband to practice polygamy is sunnat, and the wife has the right to claim fasaq if the husband does not meet her conditions. However, if the wife decides to be patient and accept her conditions as unfulfilled, then she loses her right to claim fasaq. And in other cases, if the condition is made after marriage, then it is unnecessary for a man to fulfill. But despite that, Ibn Rajab stated it must be fulfilled even if the condition was made after marriage. Therefore, this is the most strongest opinion and argument in Mazhab Hanbali. Now, we will look into the comparisons of Mazhab's views and opinion on this issue. Let's go to the first column, which is the status of conditions of not allowing the future husband to practice polygamy. First of all, both Mazhab Hanafi and Shafi'i agree that the conditions is fasid or invalid because it prohibits something that has been permissible in Islam. And the scholars of Mazhab Shafi'i also further state that the fasid's condition will change the mahar or the dowry to become fasid but not the marriage. While according to Mazhab Maliki, the conditions of not allowing the future husband to engage in polygamy is batil or falsehood, and there is no any further argument on this matter, because falsehood or batil refer to an act agreed upon by the scholars on its falsehood. And among all the mazhabs, Mazhab Hanbali is the only mazhab that consider this condition valid. For the second column, which is the ruling on fulfilling this condition, from Mazhab Hanafi, Imam Sarakhsi stated that this type of conditions are unnecessary for men to fulfill, while from Mazhab Hanbali, fulfilling this condition is sunnat, and this opinion comes directly from Imam Ahmad Hanbal himself. And for the other two mazhab, Maliki and Shafi'i, they did not further elaborate on this matter. For the third column, ruling on marriage status, all four mazhab agree and stated that the marriage is valid, and there are two mazhab that further elaborated on this matter. First, Mazhab Hanafi stated that the marriage is lawful, and if the husband comply with the condition, then the wife is given mahar musamma, and if otherwise, the wife is given mahar mitzil. Second, Mazhab Hanbali state that although this marriage is lawful, the wife has the right to demand fasaq if her husband does not meet the condition. Now we are at the last part, which is another opinion of other scholars or fatwa upon this issue. First, Imam Ibn Rushdi. He said that the scholars have different opinions on the ruling of meeting these types of condition, such as a husband cannot practice polygamy or bringing his wife out her resident place and other similar situations. According to Al-Awza'i and Ibn Shubruma, a wife has the right to impose certain conditions and the husband must comply with them. Also, Ibn Shihab added that major scholars have supported this view, and their view is based on the narrations of Sayyidina Omar and Ali. However, their differing opinions are due to the contradictions between the general and specific evidence. The general evidence comes from a hadith narrated by Sayyidatina Aisha in Sahih al-Bukhari that say, why do some people impose conditions which are not present in Allah's law? Whoever imposes such a condition as it is not in Allah's law, then that condition is invalid, even if he imposed 100 conditions. For Allah's conditions are more binding and relevant. While the specific evidence comes from a hadith narrated by Uqbah bin Amir in Sahih Muslim that say, from among all the conditions which you have to fulfill, the condition which make it legal for you to have sexual relation, which is marriage contract, have the greatest right to be fulfilled. Therefore, Ibn Rushd further state that both hadiths are sahih. However, the specific evidence is prioritized according to scholars. In this case, it is obligatory to fulfill the condition that imposed by wife and agreed by the husband. Second, based on the fatwa from the Federal Territory, they lean to the opinion that it is legal and permissible for a wife to specify a condition that their future husband cannot practice polygamy, and to maintain the marriage harmoniously, the husband must agree and comply with the condition. However, human-created conditions are not absolute and can be changed or amended. Therefore, tolerance and forgiveness are crucial in every situation, and honest discussion between husband and wife would surely benefit. Even if the wife has the right to claim fasaq, when the husband cannot meet their condition, a decision shall be made rationally. That's all for me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Nu'ain Nadila, and I will proceed to the next issues in Munakahat, namely it is necessary to marry someone who are compatible or kafa'ah with us. So before I explain detail about the issue, let me introduce first what is kafa'ah in marriage. So kafa'ah basically is taken from the Arabic word which mean compatibility, similarity, or equivalent. Or in other words, you guys may be familiar with the words of sekufu. And in terms of terminology, kafa'ah give the meaning of equality of a man to a woman from certain characteristics that are expected in ensuring the well-being and also maintaining the marital bond between them. And Sharia put the condition of kafa'ah to a man, which is the man need to be compatible to a woman that he want to marry, because it is approvable for a man to marry any woman who are lower in the status, but it is something disapprovable for the woman to doing the same thing. Therefore, why is kafa'ah is the important matters to be considered in the marriage? It is because kafa'ah is an effort to maintain the bond, to continue and prevent divorce. Through the requirement of this kafa'ah also, it can help the couples to more easily understand the situation, feeling, and hearts of each other. This is an important aspect because understanding between husband and wife is one of the important factors in ensuring the harmony, in ensuring the marital harmony. In addition, through kafa'ah as well, it is one of the effort in avoiding difficulties in marriage, because incompatible couple will result in an uneasy household. And through kafa'ah also, it can facilitate interpersonal interaction, which is this element is very helpful for husband and wife to interact in their large family. Muslim scholars have identified numerous forms of kafa'ah, including kafa'ah in terms of religion, descent, independence, occupation, property, and no physical disabilities. So, but Muslim jurists also have different opinion on the concept of kafa'ah. As you can see in the slide, there are some criteria of kafa'ah that are acknowledged by the Muslim jurists, and some of them are not acknowledged by the Muslim jurists. So the first element of kafa'ah is religion. The majority of Muslim scholars agree to include religion as a key element of kafa'ah, and according to Hanafi scholars on the element of religion, he classified religion in two terms, namely Islam and also preserve from disgraceful act. What is meant by the term of Islam in view of the Hanafi scholar is a prospective husband whose father is Muslim is compatible to a woman whose father is Muslim too. And in terms of preserve from disgraceful act is uh, a weak man, which is a fasik man, is not compatible with a pure and pious woman. And this view of the Hanafi scholars on these matters are the same as the Shafi'i scholar, Maliki, and also Hanbali, where all the majority of jurists believe that the good women are only equivalent to a good man, and a weak woman, which is a fasik woman, are only compatible with a fasik man. So the next criteria in kafa'ah is no physical disabilities, which was agreed by Shafi'i and Maliki scholars. According to the Maliki and Shafi'i scholars, kafa'ah from this point of view is that the couple must be physically and mentally healthy, and they are safe from any disabilities that could lead to a situation where the option, or known as khiyar, may arise whether the marriage may be continued or not. And among the physical disabilities categorized in this kafa'ah is insanity, leprosy, and so on. Therefore, any man with a significant physical disabilities is not compatible to a healthy and normal woman because it is considered unequal, and if the relationship is carried out, it is feared that it may damage the marriage in the future. Okay, the next criteria is property. Property is kafa'ah criteria that are agreed by Hanafi and Hanbali scholars, and the property in this context is addressed as a man's ability to pay dowry, which is mas kahwin, and provide maintenance, which is nafkah, to his wife. Property is prioritized as a measure of kafa'ah according to Hanafi and Hanbali scholars because men's ability to provide maintenance is important in maintaining the survival of their life. According to Hanbali scholars, he also used property as a kufu measure since it has become the responsibility of a husband to provide maintenance for his wife. And as a result, the Hanafi and Hanbali scholars believe that the men who lack the property to pay dowry and to provide maintenance are not compatible with a wealthy woman since the husband is likely to encounter difficulty in fulfilling the living necessities of their wife and children in the future. Next is dasan, which is considered as a kafa'ah that is agreed by Hanafi, Hanbali, and Shafi'i scholars. According to these Muslim jurists, they state that Arab people are only compatible with Arab people, and Quraysh people are only compatible with fellow Quraysh, including the group of Muttalib and Hashim, while non-Arab women are only compatible to non-Arab men. And according to the majority of scholars, they emphasize dasan in the measure of kafa'ah because Arab people have a concern in maintaining dasan, and they are proud of their dasan, and it can raise shame among of them if there is a conflict that related to dasan. Next is profession. The profession is the next kafa'ah requirement. Other than mazhab Maliki, majority of Muslim scholars including occupation as a measure of kafa'ah, which means that the husband should have a job comparable to his wife or family. The majority of the scholars believe that the men who work in heavy jobs such as street cleaners, cuping workers, and others are not comparable to a woman whose job or father's job is higher, and it also considered as a disadvantageous if they married a woman from the group of people who have respectable job. The next kafa'ah is independence or freedom, which is agreed by Hanafi, Shafi'i, and Hanbali scholars, which mean that a male slave is not compatible with the women who were originally independent, even though they have acquired the freedom. Similarly, when a man that has a father or grandfather who was once a slave is not compatible to a woman whose father and grandfather never been a slave. This is because the majority of Muslim scholars believe that if a free woman originally married a slave, it will bring a lot of harmful influence. For example, is considered despicable because being the wife of slave cannot promise a good life except poverty, because a slave has no right to spend what others have, including the needs of his children. So, based on the explanation just now, it can be seen that each Muslim scholars acknowledge different criteria of kafa'ah, and they also have different view on the law of kafa'ah. So, as you can see in the slide, according to Hanafi, Maliki and Shafi'i, kafa'ah is not a legal condition of marriage, which means that if a person marries regardless of kafa'ah, then his marriage remains valid. But according to Hanbali, kafa'ah is considered as a legal condition of marriage because, according to this scholar, if a woman marry herself to a man who is not kafa'ah, who is not compatible with her without the permission of her wali or guardian, then the marriage contract is not valid. But the other hand, if the man is kafa'ah with her, if the man is compatible with her, then the marriage contract is valid. Next, I will share the view from Mufti from Federal Territory of Malaysia regarding these issues. From the point of view of Mufti, in the concept of kafa'ah, among the criteria that are considered as kafa'ah is religion, because it has a clear evidence, and a majority of fuqaha argue that the other characteristic of kafa'ah are based on the ijtihad of the fuqaha in safeguarding the welfare of the household as well as ensuring dignity and good offspring. This coincides with the hadith that have been mentioned about the guidance in choosing a son-in-law and also in choosing a wife, as you can see in the slide. So the first hadith state that when there come to you the guardian, those whom you are pleased with their moral and religion, then marry him with your daughters. If you do not do so, then will surely be slander on the face of the earth and also great damage. Apart from that, there is also Islamic evidence in choosing a suitable wife to be used as a wife, which is in the hadith also emphasize the religious aspect. So as you can see in the slide, the hadith, which is mean that a woman is married due to the four things. This is because of his wealth, his position, his beauty, and also because of his religion. So choose women who are religious, surely hand will be clean from dirt. So based on the this hadith, this is clearly illustrate that the religious characteristic of husband and wife are the main factors that are emphasized in the marriage. Moreover, the majority of Muslim scholars explain that the characteristic of kafa'ah is depend on the changes of place and time, which is the current society views on the kafa'ah may be different from the previous society's view. And the Mufti of the Federal Territory of Malaysia state that there is no denying that local uruf should also be given emphasis in the issue of kafa'ah, because sometimes understanding in political aspect, issue in statehood, descent background should also be emphasized and considered before the two couple who want to get married to start to set up the household. And it is important to consider those criteria, because if there is no mutual understanding in political ideology as well as other criteria between the two couple, it is likely that there will be some negative implication in the marriage, such as ongoing disputes, or at worst it can lead to the divorce. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Syamila Atura binti Hassan, and now I am going to present about how to know if rujuk happens between a husband and a wife. So, do you know what is rujuk? And how do you know if there is rujuk between a husband and a wife? Are you guys curious? Okay, let's find out in the next slide. What is rujuk? In easy way, rujuk is a reunification between a husband and a wife who has been divorced before, but it must happen in iddah period. This is the evidence from Quran about rujuk, so you can read it in the slide. If getting married is called marriage, then continue the marriage is called rujuk. The law of rujuk is the same as the law of marriage, but in establishing the law of rujuk, the mazhab has different opinions. What are the views of mazhab of Fiqh regarding rujuk? So now I am going to explain it from the mazhab Shafi'i's opinion. In this slide, I am showing you the condition that is needed to rujuk according to mazhab Shafi'i. The first condition is the presence of husband. If the husband does not present at the same time with the wife, then the rujuk is invalid. Next condition is the wife must be in iddah period. So iddah period after divorce are 3 months. If it happens outside of iddah period, then the rujuk is invalid. Third condition is the word of rujuk must be uttered by husband clearly. For example, like I rujuk you with. Yeah, it's easy. Fourth condition is the rujuk must be done for talaq raj'i only. So what is talaq raj'i? Talaq raj'i is talaq 1 and talaq 2. Therefore, it is concluded that according to mazhab Shafi'i, rujuk can only be done by uttering the words of rujuk. According to mazhab Hanafi, to do the rujuk, it must contain seal. So seal can be done either verbally through action or by words. So if the husband wants to kiss or wants to hug or maybe wants to have the intercourse with the wife, then it is considered as rujuk. However, it must be done with desire. According to mazhab Maliki, the husband and the wife must be baligh and sensible. If they are not baligh, if they are not sensible, then the rujuk cannot be done or it will be invalid. Besides, the rujuk cannot be done for talaq ba'in. Talaq ba'in is talaq 3 or the divorce that is cause of hulu, fasa or anything similar. Mazhab Maliki also stated that the rujuk must be done in iddah period. If it is outside of iddah period, then it is invalid. If the husband wants to rujuk by having intercourse, then the intercourse must be done while the wife is still in pure state. According to Mazhab Maliki, the words of rujuk is not needed to do the rujuk. Instead, he said that the rujuk can be done through actions, such as kissing, hugging, and having intercourse. But all of this action must be done with intention to rujuk. If the husband doesn't have any intention to rujuk while he is doing these actions like kissing, hugging, and having intercourse, then the rujuk is invalid. Now, we are going to hear about Mazhab Hanbali's opinion. So according to Mazhab Hanbali, the husband must have sound of mind, which means he is not crazy, he is not drunk. If the rujuk was done when he was crazy or when he was drunk, then the rujuk is invalid. Next, the wife must be from a legal marriage. If the husband wants to do rujuk for another people's wife, then it is invalid. According to Mazhab Hanbali, there are 2 ways that can be done to rujuk. First is uttering clear words. So the husband can utter the words of rujuk to his wife, like I want to rujuk you. The other way is by having intercourse only. So according to Mazhab Hanbali, only intercourse is allowed to do rujuk. The other actions such as kissing, hugging, and touching are not acceptable to do rujuk. And he also stated that even without intention, if the husband wants to have intercourse with his wife, then it is considered as rujuk. To get married, you need witness. But to rujuk, do you need a witness? According to Mazhab Hanafi, Maliki, and Hanbali, they thought that it is not wajib to have a witness. Instead, it is only a sunnah. But for Mazhab Shafi'i, he thought that it is wajib to have a witness according to Surah Talaq verse 2. As for the willingness of the wife to rujuk, all mazhab agree that the husband doesn't need the wife's agreement to rujuk. It is based on Surah Al-Baqarah ayat 228. However, if the husband wants to rujuk the wife because he wants to torture the wife, then it cannot be done. This is the comparison between mazhab regarding rujuk. Only Mazhab Shafi'i stated that it is needed to utter the words of rujuk to rujuk. However, the other mazhab, Hanbali, Hanafi, and Maliki, they didn't state that it is needed to utter the words of rujuk to rujuk. According to Mazhab Maliki, rujuk can be done through action such as hugging, kissing, touching, and having intercourse. As long as they all done with intention, then it can be considered as rujuk. According to Mazhab Hanafi, the actions such as kissing, touching, hugging, or having intercourse can be considered as rujuk, as long as they do it with desire. If they do the action without desire, then it cannot considered as rujuk. According to Mazhab Hanbali, if the husband wants to rujuk his wife through action, then only intercourse can be considered as rujuk. If the husband wants to kiss, wants to hug, or wants to touch, then all of that action are not considered as rujuk. Even though if the husband doesn't have any intention to rujuk, but if he did the intercourse with his wife, then it is considered as rujuk. For the need of witness, only Mazhab Shafi'i stated that it is a must to have a witness to rujuk. The other Mazhab says no. And finally, the willingness of wife. So all Mazhab agree that the husband doesn't need the wife's agreement to rujuk. In Malaysia, we are following Mazhab Shafi'i. Therefore, if the husband wants to rujuk his wife, he need to undergo some process at Sharia court. And finally, he need to utter the rujuk words to the MCR officer. So this is the process of rujuk in Malaysia. First, the applicant must register the confirmation of divorce at the Sharia court. Then, the rujuk can be done after the applicant has received the order from Sharia court and the wife must be still in Edda period. Finally, the husband and wife must appear with the registrar of marriages, divorces, and rujuk and utter the rujuk words. The fee to register the rujuk is only 20 ringgit per person.
Conclusion, after analyzing all of these munakah related matters and issues, we found out that this subject of marriage is one of the most challenging, or it can be said difficult and complex problems for us as a human being who lack a thorough understanding of Islamic law to understand and to resolve by ourselves. Therefore, the best way to avoid confusion is to adhere to the opinion of mazhab, refer to the mufti, or refer to the fatwa or other experts in the particular field. And as a result, adhering to the Islamic law or teaching or guidance, in particular about munakah ruling, will make our marriage lawful and Allah Subhanahu wa Taala will bless the marriage. So I think that's all from us. Thank you for listening to our presentation.